The city was alive with the hum of life, honking cars, chattering pedestrians, and the distant wail of a siren. But in one quiet, forgotten corner of the bustling metropolis, a young boy named Eli danced. Not in the shiny studios or on grand stages, but on the cracked pavement of an abandoned park, barefoot, wearing clothes too big for his small frame. His movements were clumsy at times, yet there was a grace in them, a rhythm that defied the hardships etched into his thin, sun-darkened skin. Eli's life had not been kind. Orphaned at the age of 8, he had wandered the streets ever since, learning to survive in the margins of a city that barely noticed him. Yet when he danced, he forgot hunger, cold, and fear. His movements spoke of a world beyond survival, a world of dreams, freedom, and beauty. It was on a particularly crisp autumn afternoon that destiny chose to intervene. Eli twirled, kicked, and leaped to the rhythm of an invisible drum when a sleek black car rolled to a stop nearby. The driver door opened, and a man in a sharp suit stepped out. His shoes were polished to a mirror-like shine, his watch glinted in the sunlight, and the air around him carried the invisible aura of wealth and power. This was Jonathan Carlyle, a billionaire whose name dominated business headlines, but whose heart had grown weary and cold in the pursuit of success. Jonathan had brought his daughter, Lily, to the park for what should have been a routine therapy session. Lily, 16, had been paralyzed from the waist down in a car accident 2 years prior. The world had shifted under her feet, leaving her trapped in a body that no longer obeyed her dreams. Physical therapy, consultations, and endless attempts at rehabilitation had become the routine of their lives. But hope, as Jonathan feared, had all but left their home. When Eli's figure caught his eye, Jonathan frowned. A boy in rags, dancing for nothing, yet moving with a lightness that defied the grime of the streets. There was something captivating about the child, something Jonathan couldn't quite place. He leaned slightly closer, shielding Lily's eyes from the cold autumn sun, and watched Eli's dance had a rhythm that spoke directly to the soul. He spun, dipped, and leaped with an energy that made Jonathan's heart tighten. There was no audience, no applause, no expectation. But the boy's passion was magnetic. Lily, despite her paralysis, leaned forward in her wheelchair, eyes wide and unblinking. A small smile touched her lips, the first in months that Jonathan had seen. "Daddy, he's amazing," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jonathan was startled. He had almost forgotten she still spoke after weeks of silence during therapy. He blinked, unsure whether he was witnessing a miracle or simply a fleeting moment of childish fascination. The boy's dance ended abruptly as a gust of wind swept through the park, tossing leaves in a swirl around him. He stumbled, then caught himself with a grace that made Jonathan's chest ache. Eli looked up and saw them, the man in the tailored suit and the girl in the wheelchair. For a moment he froze, unsure if they were real or just another illusion conjured by his weary mind. "Can you dance for her?" Jonathan asked almost without thinking. Eli hesitated. He had danced for coins, for scraps of bread, for passing strangers who tossed him a nod or a glance. But something about Lily's eyes, bright, curious, and alive, pulled at his heart. Slowly he nodded, wiping sweat from his brow, and began again. This time, the dance was different. It was not just movement, it was a story. Each step told of hardship endured, each spin spoke of dreams unbroken, and every leap carried a silent message. There is still hope. Jonathan watched in awe, his stoic exterior cracking with emotion. Lily laughed, a sound so pure and unguarded it made him choke back tears. For the first time in months, Jonathan saw his daughter's spirit awaken. The dance ended with Eli collapsing onto the cold pavement, exhausted but smiling. Jonathan approached cautiously. You've brought something back to her," he said quietly, unsure if he was speaking to the boy or to the universe itself. Eli's eyes, wide and unafraid, met Jonathan's. She can dance too," he said simply, pointing at Lily. Jonathan frowned. "She can dance?" "She can," Eli insisted, his voice firm despite its youth. "I'll show her." Jonathan studied the boy. There was something raw, something genuine, in his conviction. No therapy had achieved this. No expensive equipment or specialized trainers. Something about Eli, about the way he moved, the way he believed in the impossible, made Jonathan feel that perhaps miracles weren't as impossible as he'd thought. That day marked the beginning of a journey that would challenge their worlds. Eli, the boy who had nothing, would teach Jonathan and Lily lessons that wealth could never buy. And Lily, paralyzed in body but awakening in spirit, would discover a strength that even the most tragic fate could not extinguish. Little did they know that a single dance performed on the cracked pavement of a forgotten park would set in motion a chain of events that would transform not just one life, but three, in ways they could never have imagined. The next morning, Jonathan found himself hesitating outside the park. He had never been the type to indulge whims, yet something about Eli's dance tugged at his heart. Lily, sensing his indecision, reached for his hand. "Daddy, can we go back, please?" Jonathan nodded, a strange mixture of apprehension and hope tightening in his chest. As they approached the park, Eli was already there, barefoot, spinning and twirling as if the world itself were his stage. The crisp morning air carried the rhythm of his movements, each step a story of resilience and survival. "Good morning," Eli greeted, bowing slightly. His eyes, dark and clear, sparkled with cautious optimism. "Good morning," Jonathan replied, his voice quieter than usual. He could hardly explain why he felt so drawn to this boy. Lily's wheelchair rolled forward, and Eli paused mid-dance. He had danced for strangers before, but something about her presence made him hesitate. Her eyes were full of longing, a silent plea that Eli could not ignore. "Do you want to try?" Eli asked gently, lowering himself to meet her gaze. Lily's fingers trembled as she reached toward him. I don't know if I can," she admitted. The words were a whisper, but Eli heard the fear behind them. He smiled softly. "Then we'll start small," he said. "You don't have to move your legs if you can't. Just move your arms, your shoulders. Feel the rhythm, feel the music in your body. Dancing isn't just about steps, it's about freedom." Jonathan watched, astonished, as Eli guided Lily's hands in small, circular motions. Slowly, she began to follow his lead, her face lighting up with every tiny movement. Laughter bubbled from her lips, a sound Jonathan realized he had missed more than he cared to admit. Days turned into weeks, and each session brought new discoveries. Lily learned to sway, to stretch, to feel the rhythm that Eli carried naturally in every movement. Eli, for his part, discovered a patience he had never known, a gentle way of coaxing joy out of someone who had almost given up. Jonathan, though initially skeptical, began to witness subtle changes. Lily's muscles, weakened from years of inactivity, grew stronger. Her posture improved. Most importantly, her spirit began to shine through the paralysis. She began to speak more, laugh more, and dream more. Small victories that no therapy session had ever achieved. One afternoon, as the golden sun cast long shadows across the park, Eli decided it was time for Lily's first real leap. "Are you ready?" he asked, kneeling beside her wheelchair. Lily's hands tightened on the armrests. I think so," she whispered. Jonathan held his breath. Eli guided her arms upward, matching each motion with a rhythm that seemed to flow from the earth itself. Slowly, miraculously, Lily lifted her torso, leaning forward as though the weight of her paralysis had been lifted for a brief, shining moment. Tears pricked her eyes. I did it!" Eli grinned, his own eyes glistening. "Yes, you did it. See? You can dance. You just needed to believe." Jonathan stepped closer, his own voice trembling. "Lily, you're amazing." He had never spoken like this before. Not about achievements, not about dreams, not about hope. Yet in that moment he realized that wealth, influence, and power paled in comparison to the miracle unfolding before him. The word of Eli's talent began to spread quietly. A few passers-by stopped to watch, captivated by the sight of a homeless boy teaching a paralyzed girl to move. Some whispered in awe. Others discreetly filmed the moment on their phones. But Eli and Lily paid them no mind. Their world was small, contained in the rhythm of movement, the connection of hearts, and the joy of rediscovered freedom. Yet the path was not without obstacles. One rainy afternoon, Eli slipped in the mud while guiding Lily through a particularly complicated sequence. She fell, her wheelchair tipping dangerously, and panic gripped Jonathan's heart. But Eli was quick, steadying her with a strength that belied his frail frame. "Are you okay?" he asked, worry shadowing his youthful face. I'm fine," Lily said shakily, brushing away tears. Yet the fear lingered in her eyes. Jonathan knelt beside them. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." His voice faltered. He realized that for all his money he had never truly understood what it meant to risk something for hope, for love, for a chance at a miracle. Eli shook his head. "No, sir. Accidents happen, but she's trying, and that's what matters." Jonathan studied him. Here was a boy who had nothing, yet gave everything he had to bring life, joy, and hope to another. The irony was not lost on him. Perhaps it was true. Those who had the least could teach the most. As weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. Eli became not just a teacher, but a friend, a confidant, a spark of life in Lily's constrained world. And Lily, in turn, gave Eli something he had never experienced: trust, respect, and the feeling of being seen. Not as a homeless boy, but as a human capable of change, of healing, of miracles. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting the city in hues of orange and pink, Eli and Lily practiced their latest routine. Jonathan watched silently from the sidelines, a cup of untouched coffee in his hands. He realized that life had a strange way of humbling the proud and elevating the unnoticed. Eli's dance was no longer just a form of expression. It was a bridge, connecting lives, mending hearts, and offering hope where despair had once reigned. And in the quiet of that moment, Jonathan understood that miracles were not always loud, grand, or visible. Sometimes they arrived softly, in the form of a boy who danced barefoot on cracked pavement, and a girl who had almost forgotten how to believe. It was then that Jonathan made a decision, a promise that he could not yet fully articulate. Eli was not just a child of the streets. He was someone who had changed the trajectory of their lives, and he would not be allowed to vanish as quickly as he had appeared. Little did they know the real test was yet to come, a challenge that would stretch their courage, faith, and the bond they had forged through movement, laughter, and hope. The story of Eli, Lily, and Jonathan was just beginning, and the next chapter would demand everything they had learned about trust, resilience, and the power of the human spirit. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of laughter, discovery, and small victories. Lily's movements grew more confident, her arms more coordinated, her back straighter as she learned to feel the rhythm of her body again. Eli's barefoot spins became more synchronized with her cautious, yet determined motions. They had created a bubble of hope in a world that had often denied it, but not everyone was ready to celebrate. Marissa, Jonathan's personal assistant, had been observing quietly. She had managed his schedules, monitored visitors, and protected the family's image for years. Yet as she watched a homeless boy teaching Jonathan's paralyzed daughter to dance in public, unease gnawed at her. This boy, dirty, unrefined, unknown, was a threat. Not just to their safety, she told herself, but to the carefully curated world Jonathan had built. "Jonathan," she said one afternoon, stepping into his office, her tone sharp but controlled. "I don't think this is safe, that boy. He's hiding something. How do we know he isn't a con artist? A scammer?" Jonathan, who had just returned from the park, looked up, still holding the image of Lily's joyful smile in his mind. "He's changed her," he said quietly, almost defensively. "I've never seen her laugh like this. Not since the accident." Marissa's lips tightened. "You can't measure character by smiles. Eli is unpredictable. You can't risk her progress, or your reputation, on a street kid's goodwill." Jonathan's chest tightened. "Do you think I care about my reputation if it costs my daughter hope?" His voice was low, firm, but even as he spoke, doubt flickered in his eyes. Meanwhile, Eli had begun noticing that things weren't as simple as they seemed. A few strangers had stopped filming their sessions, whispering questions that seemed pointed, invasive. Some even offered money, which Eli always refused. The city was watching them, he realized, and the attention brought a weight he hadn't felt before. One rainy afternoon, the test came. They had been practicing a more complex routine, a sequence where Lily would attempt to lift her upper body in a fluid motion, guided entirely by Eli's cues. The ground was slick from the rain. Puddles reflected the soft gray light of the overcast sky. Eli's hands trembled slightly as he steadied Lily. Her wheelchair rocked dangerously with each movement. Steady, steady, he murmured, trying to mask the fear in his chest. And then it happened. Lily's chair tipped, throwing her sideways. She gasped, arms flailing, heart racing. Eli dove instinctively, catching her before she could hit the ground. Mud splashed across his hands and arms. Cold water soaked through his clothes. Jonathan was running before he realized it, panic twisting his usually controlled features. "Lily!" he shouted, reaching them just in time to see Eli holding her upright. "I'm fine," Lily cried, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks. Her voice was a mixture of shock and defiance. But fear lingered beneath the bravado. Eli's chest heaved as he steadied her, mud caking his hands. "Accidents happen," he said, voice calm but eyes wide. "But you're trying, and that's what matters." Jonathan's chest tightened, a swirl of emotions crashing over him. Relief, fear, awe, anger at himself for letting it happen. He looked at Eli, at the boy who had nothing yet was willing to risk everything, and felt a pang of something unfamiliar. Respect. "Do you understand what you've done?" Jonathan asked quietly, voice thick. "You've given her something no doctor, no therapy, no amount of money could ever give." Eli looked down at the muddy ground, shrugging faintly. "I didn't do anything special," he murmured. "I just danced." But Jonathan knew better. He had seen the truth. This boy's belief in movement, in possibility, in hope, was what made miracles happen. And yet the boy's humility also hid a secret, a past Jonathan had not yet glimpsed, one that Marissa was itching to expose. Days later, Marissa took her chance. She had dug quietly into Eli's past, discovering a childhood marked by talent, a prestigious academy, and a choice to walk away. She presented Jonathan with her findings during a late evening meeting, her voice tight with urgency. "He's not just a street kid," she said, sliding a small file across the polished desk. "He was trained at the finest schools. He left for reasons no one fully understands, and if the public finds out, it could ruin us." Jonathan opened the file, flipping through newspaper clippings, certificates, and photographs. He felt a storm of conflicting emotions: betrayal, confusion, awe. Why would he leave it all behind? He whispered, more to himself than to her. "Because some people aren't meant for normal life," Eli's own words echoed in his mind from weeks before. "Because sometimes the world doesn't care about what you can do. It cares about who you are, what you bring to others." The revelation unsettled Jonathan. He realized that his own assumptions had blinded him. Eli wasn't just a boy in need. He was someone choosing to give, someone choosing courage over comfort, someone choosing hope over despair. And yet the stakes had risen. Marissa's intervention planted a seed of doubt. Jonathan's trust wavered, and Lily sensed the tension, clinging a little tighter to Eli with every session. Their fragile bubble of progress now teetered on the edge of collapse. The next practice session began under a heavy sky, rain threatening but not yet falling. Eli guided Lily carefully, sweat and mud clinging to him, patience stretched thin but unwavering. Every movement now carried the weight of expectation, every step a test of trust, and every laugh a fragile thread of resilience. Jonathan watched silently, knowing that what happened today could break them, or, if Eli succeeded, could forge a bond stronger than fear, richer than money, and more lasting than any ordinary miracle. The morning air was thick with anticipation. Golden sunlight cut through the clouds, highlighting every leaf, every crack in the pavement. Eli adjusted his worn sneakers and took a deep breath. Today wasn't just practice. Today was the culmination of months of trust, sweat, mud, laughter, and tiny victories. Lily's wheelchair gleamed in the sunlight, its polished frame a stark contrast to Eli's bare, calloused feet. Her fingers clutched the armrests with quiet determination. The park, usually deserted this early, seemed to hold its breath. Birds paused mid-flight. Even the wind stilled. Jonathan stood at a short distance, arms crossed, heart pounding. He had promised himself he wouldn't interfere today, yet every fiber of his being screamed to step in, to control, to protect. But deep down he knew that control would ruin the miracle. Eli approached Lily slowly. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. His eyes scanned her face, searching for the familiar flicker of fear that had haunted her all these months. Instead, he found something new: determination. "I'm ready," Lily whispered. The first notes of music floated through the morning air. Soft, delicate, yet with a pulse that seemed to match the heartbeat of the park itself. Eli extended his hands, palms up, and Lily followed instinctively. "Just feel it," Eli murmured. "Feel it in your chest, your shoulders, your fingers. Let the music move you. Don't think. Just be." For a moment, nothing happened. The world seemed to hang, suspended in the tension of possibility. Then slowly Lily swayed. Her upper body leaned forward, guided by Eli's steady hands. A small smile broke across her face. Jonathan felt his chest tighten. He hadn't realized he was holding his breath, step by step, movement by movement. They flowed together. Each gesture carried months of struggle, trust, and learning. Eli twirled beside her, a whirlwind of motion, coaxing her out of fear with every spin, every rotation. Suddenly, Eli let go of her hands for a brief second. Lily froze. Jonathan gasped. Time seemed to slow. And then, she moved on her own. Not just her arms. Her torso twisted, her shoulders rolled, and for a fleeting moment, her legs lifted slightly, suspended as though gravity had forgotten. Her tears streamed down Lily's cheeks. I'm doing it!" she cried. Her voice was a mixture of shock, triumph, and pure, unfiltered joy. Eli's face broke into a radiant grin. "Yes, that's it. You did it all by yourself." Jonathan stepped closer, barely able to speak. "Lily, you're incredible." His voice cracked, raw with emotion. In that moment, he realized that nothing he had ever bought, controlled, or commanded could compare to what they had achieved together. From the shadows, Marissa watched, her expression unreadable. She had intended to protect Jonathan, to stop what she thought was reckless. Yet now she felt something she hadn't anticipated: awe. The boy she had doubted, the girl she had underestimated, had created something impossible. Lily's laughter rang through the park, pure and triumphant. She had not just learned to move, she had reclaimed herself. Eli, breathless and muddy, bowed dramatically, as if the applause of the universe itself demanded recognition. Jonathan finally spoke, voice full of humility and admiration. "Eli, I don't know how to thank you. You've given her life back." Eli shook his head, smiling shyly. "You don't have to. She found it herself. I just helped her remember how to believe." For the first time in months, Jonathan let go of his fears, his need for control, and simply watched. He realized that life wasn't about safety, reputation, or perfection. It was about moments like this, raw and fragile, that could never be bought or planned. Marissa stepped forward, hesitating. "I misjudged you," she admitted quietly. "I thought maybe I was wrong." Eli glanced at her, eyebrow raised. "You just have to see with your heart sometimes," Eli said, shrugging lightly, the kind of humility that made adults uncomfortable. Lily's laughter continued, filling the space between them, stitching their hearts together in a way therapy and money never could. Jonathan knelt beside her wheelchair, brushing mud from her arms, unable to hide the tears in his eyes. "You've changed everything," he whispered. And indeed, everything had changed. Eli had gone from a nameless street boy to a hero not through money or fame, but through courage, belief, and a gift of hope Lily had reclaimed more than movement. She had regained trust in life, laughter, and love. Jonathan had learned that miracles weren't purchased. They were nurtured, risked, and sometimes delivered barefoot, in the rain and in the most unexpected of ways. As the sun rose higher, illuminating the park in golden light, Eli, Lily, and Jonathan stood together. The future remained uncertain. There would still be challenges, obstacles, and tests of faith. But for this moment, hope had triumphed. And in the quiet aftermath, Jonathan made a promise, aloud this time. "You're not leaving us, Eli. You've changed our lives, and we're going to change yours too, no matter what it takes." Eli blinked, unaccustomed to promises like that, but he nodded. Somewhere deep down, he allowed himself to hope, not just for himself, but for the family he had unexpectedly become part of. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful story. Don't forget to like, share, leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our exciting stories.